1960s R&B was a universe of velvet voices, backbeat magic, and artists who could turn heartache into pure poetry. Somewhere in that glow, Barbara Lewis was whispering tender confessions that still melt the room. And later in this countdown, we'll revisit a legend whose impact only grew beyond the spotlight. These are 12 soulful wonders, and where life carried them. Number 12, Barbara Lewis, the quiet storm of 60s soul.
Baby, I'm yours.
Barbara Lewis entered the scene like a soft breeze over a summer night. Gentle, intimate, and unmistakably hers. In 1962, with Atlantic Records behind her and producer Ollie McLaughlin guiding every note, she carved out a niche no one else quite inhabited.
Seems so good to see you back again.
Songs like Hello Stranger made people stop what they were doing just to let that sweetness wash over them. Behind the scenes, her career came with its own turns. McLaughlin was known for ghostwriting and shaping her sound to a near cinematic polish. But as the industry shifted in the late 60s, Lewis, naturally private and modest, stepped away from the fast lane rather than chase it. She battled through personal and contractual struggles that kept her from getting her full due for years. Yet her influence never faded. Every time that dreamy organ intro reappears in a movie, a commercial, or on a late-night radio set, a new listener falls for her all over again. Today, Barbara Lewis lives quietly outside the spotlight, but tributes continue to surround her.
In a special way, make me your...
Modern neo-soul artists still borrow her breathy tenderness, and Hello Stranger remains one of the most sampled and covered slow burn classics of the last 50 years. And if that gentle nostalgia warmed you, wait till you hear who comes next. An artist whose voice could shake the walls one moment and soothe the soul the next. Number 11, Brenton Wood, the king of feel-good soul.
Let's get away from...
Brenton Wood didn't just sing songs, he floated them into the world with a grin you could practically hear through the speaker. When he broke out in 1967 with the Oogum Boogum song and the endlessly charming Gimme Little Sign, he brought a fresh, playful spark to R&B. Born Alfred Smith, he built his sound in the Los Angeles scene, where a mix of West Coast sunshine and doo-wop roots shaped his unmistakable style. Behind the curtain, his journey had some twists. Despite scoring 2 massive hits, Wood faced label limitations and shift in industry tastes that made it hard to keep that momentum going at the same scale. Yet he never stepped away from music. In fact, he kept performing for decades, especially beloved on the lowrider oldie circuit, where his voice still felt like a warm summer afternoon.
You got it, you got it. That's all I can say for you.
What's beautiful is how his music aged. Younger generations rediscovered him through oldies radio blocks, sample-hungry producers, and backyard family parties where his songs never really left rotation. Brenton Wood remained active well into his later years, performing at festivals and soul reviews with that same humble smile and smooth tone that first won fans over in the 60s.
Me and you.
Even today, his influence echoes in feel-good R&B, Chicano soul, and retro revival acts who lean on that unmistakable California sweetness he perfected. If Wood brought the sunshine, then the next artist brought pure tear-stained soul. The kind that makes you stop mid-step, close your eyes, and just feel. Number 10, Bettye Swann, the soft-spoken soul survivor.
Started loving you again.
Bettye Swann carried a kind of quiet strength that didn't need to shout to be heard. When she released Make Me Yours in 1967, she did something rare. She topped the R&B charts with a voice so tender, it felt like she was singing just for you.
You'd be the happiest man alive if you could
Born Betty Jean Champion in Louisiana, she built her early career grinding through clubs across the West Coast, eventually signing with Money Records, where she found her moment of magic. Her life, though, held a mix of triumph and turbulence. As labels shifted and the late 60s turned into the 70s, Swann fought for artistic control and for recognition as a songwriter, long before the industry embraced women owning their pens. After her husband and manager, George Barton, died tragically in 1980, Swann chose to step completely away from the music world.
If you pass by me.
The stage lights dimmed, and she quietly retired into a life of faith and teaching. But here's the twist. Even in her absence, the world kept calling her name. Rare soul collectors hunted down her singles like buried treasure. Younger artists, from Joss Stone to British Northern Soul DJs, rediscovered her deep cuts, sparking a full-blown renaissance of appreciation. And in recent years, Swann has received overdue recognition through reissues, interviews, and fan-driven tributes that honor her gentle brilliance.
I don't care what nobody says, I'm looking for always now.
Today, she lives privately, far from the spotlight. But her music feels more alive than ever. Every time that soft trembling vibrato rises from a dusty record or a curated playlist, it reminds us that vulnerability can be its own kind of power. Number 9, Dobie Gray, the wanderer who found a forever home in music.
I'm in with the in crowd. I go.
Dobie Gray had one of those voices that felt like a warm handshake. Steady, sincere, and comforting in every note. Born Lawrence Darrow Brown in Texas, he broke through in 1965 with The In Crowd, a smooth, swaggering anthem that fit perfectly into the changing tide of mid-60s soul. But Dobie wasn't content to stay in one lane. By the early 70s, he stepped into a richer, rootsier sound and delivered the genre-blending masterpiece, Drift Away, a song that became its own kind of American hymn.
I'm feeling the strain. Ain't it a shame?
What people don't always know is how winding his path really was. Gray spent years in Los Angeles, working small gigs, and even starring in musicals before he fully found his groove. He recorded for several labels, Charger, Decca, Capricorn, and each era brought a new layer to his artistry.
I'm in with the in crowd, and I know what.
When the charts shifted away from classic soul, he didn't fade. He adapted. That gentlemanly resilience guided him through decades of touring, writing, and collaborating. Dobie eventually moved to Nashville, where he became a respected songwriter behind the scenes. Artists like Ray Charles, George Jones, and Etta James recorded his material.
If you could see me now.
And though he passed away in 2011, his legacy keeps traveling. Drift Away continues to reappear in films, commercials, and covers that introduce generation after generation to his signature warmth. There's something eternal about Dobie Gray. Even now, when that opening guitar line plays, it feels like a long exhale after a hard day. The kind of soul that never gets old. Number 8, Fontella Bass, the powerhouse who refused to be boxed in. Fontella Bass didn't just sing Rescue Me in 1960, she exploded it into the world. Born and raised in St. Louis, she came out of a musical family where gospel wasn't just a style, it was a backbone. By the time she joined Chess Records in Chicago, she had the kind of unstoppable vocal force that lit up every room she entered.
Angels sing.
Rescue Me was an instant smash, climbing to the top of the R&B charts and landing in the pop top 5. But its sudden success came with complicated shadows. Behind the scenes, Bass fought fiercely for recognition. She pushed Chess Records to properly credit her for co-writing the song, a battle that reflected the wider struggle many black women faced in the 60s recording industry.
Take me in your arms, rescue me. I want you to know.
Her boldness came at a cost. By the late 60s, feeling mistreated and creatively stifled, she walked away from Chess and sought deeper artistic expression. That next chapter took her somewhere unexpected: avant-garde jazz. With her husband, the legendary Lester Bowie, she joined the Art Ensemble of Chicago, touring Europe and stretching her voice far beyond the pop soul box the industry tried to trap her in. It was daring, defiant, and wildly ahead of its time. Fontella eventually stepped back into gospel and community work, raising her family and performing selectively. Even decades later, her voice could still shake the rafters when she chose to step on stage. She passed in 2012, but Rescue Me remains one of the most recognizable soul hooks in history, sampled, covered, and loved across every generation. Number 7, Arthur Conley, the joyful soul brother who carried Otis's torch. Arthur Conley burst into the spotlight with a smile in his voice and pure celebration in his spirit. In 1967, when he released Sweet Soul Music on Atco Records, he wasn't just making a hit. He was saluting an entire movement. Guided closely by Otis Redding, Conley became one of the youngest, brightest stars on the Stax Vote scene, blending Southern grit with a youthful, upbeat energy that felt like sunshine on vinyl.
That's sweet soul music. Just go with it.
But the road behind that happy sound held challenges. After Otis's tragic passing in 1967, Conley lost not only a mentor, but his most powerful advocate. The industry pressure intensified, and disputes over songwriting credits, especially their reworking of Sam Cooke's Yeah Man, pulled him into legal and emotional storms. As trends shifted, Arthur grew increasingly weary of the spotlight and of the expectations placed on him as a rising soul figure.
One used to be the shotgun, 2 used to be the bad boo.
So, he made a bold choice. He reinvented himself. Moving to Europe in the 1970s, he eventually settled in Amsterdam, embracing a quieter life and claiming a new identity as Lee Roberts. There, he continued making music on his own terms, performing for loyal fans, and building a life free from the industry turbulence he'd left behind. To those who encountered him, he was warm, humble, and grateful, a man who had found peace away from the bright lights. Arthur Conley passed away in 2003, but the joy he injected into soul music never left.
I need a whole lot of work to satisfy my soul. A boy needs.
Every time a horn section bursts open on Sweet Soul Music, it feels like he's still here, waving us onto the dance floor. And if Arthur brought us joy and jubilation, the next artist delivers pure emotional depth, the kind that sits heavy in the chest and stays with you long after the final note. Number 6, Linda Jones, the soaring soul angel whose voice still echoes.
He's across the street, or maybe she's just on another town. You know what?
Linda Jones had a voice so powerful, so piercingly emotional, that once you heard it, you never forgot it. Born in Newark, she started singing gospel as a child, carrying that raw church-born intensity into every song she ever touched. When she released Hypnotized in 1967 on Loma Records, she didn't just earn a hit. She announced herself as one of the most arresting vocal forces of the decade. Her high notes felt like lightning. Her whispers felt like prayer. But behind that fire, her story was threaded with heartbreak.
You got me hypnotized.
Jones lived with severe diabetes, a condition the industry didn't fully understand or accommodate at the time. She pushed through grueling tour schedules and studio demands, often performing while unwell. In 1972, after a show at Harlem's Apollo Theater, she slipped into a diabetic coma and tragically passed at just 27 years old. It was one of soul music's most devastating losses, a life and talent gone far too soon.
See the pyramids along the Nile.
Even so, Linda's legacy never dimmed. Neo-soul artists cite her as a blueprint for emotional delivery. Gospel singers modeled their crescendos on her unmatched intensity, and her daughter, Terry Jones, helped reintroduce her catalog to new audiences in the 2000s, reminding the world of just how extraordinary she truly was. When those opening notes of Hypnotized rise, you can almost feel Linda reaching straight through time. If her voice left you breathless, stay close. The stories ahead carry just as much soul, each one with its own surprise. If these R&B wonders from the 1960s are stirring up memories, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps keep this soul history alive. And don't go anywhere. We've still got 5 more incredible artists whose journeys might surprise you. Number 5, Jimmy Ruffin, the heartbreak storyteller who kept singing through the years. Jimmy Ruffin had one of those voices that felt built for longing, rich, steady, and aching with sincerity. When he released What Becomes of the Brokenhearted in 1966 with Motown's soul imprint, he delivered one of the most emotional anthems of the entire decade. Born in Mississippi and raised in a musical family, Jimmy came to Motown alongside his younger brother, David Ruffin of The Temptations.
Today, you came by,
But Jimmy carved out his own lane, quieter, more reflective, but just as unforgettable. Behind the scenes, he faced the same challenge many solo acts did within the Motown machine, standing out among a galaxy of stars. Though he recorded gems like I've Passed This Way Before, label priorities often fell elsewhere. Yet, Jimmy refused to fade. In the 1970s, he found a second wave of success in the UK, where fans embraced him with open arms.
Is it on my face? No. That enchanted feeling has been replayed.
Hold On to My Love. His 1980 collaboration with Robin Gibb proved he wasn't finished making hits. His later years showed a man still deeply connected to music and to his family's legacy. Jimmy spoke often about artists' rights and the importance of preserving classic soul. He continued performing selectively, appreciated by audiences who never forgot the emotion he brought into the world. When he passed in 2014, tributes poured in from both sides of the Atlantic.
You came by, tell me you are the...
Today, Jimmy Ruffin's voice remains a fixture of heartbreak playlists everywhere. That opening line, "As I walk this land with broken dreams," still lands like a punch to the chest. And it reminds us that some songs don't just describe pain, they help heal it. If Jimmy brought the tender ache, the next artist brings a voice so smooth it could make the whole world slow down. Number 4, Lou Johnson, the elegant interpreter whose voice aged like fine wine. Lou Johnson had one of the most refined, elegant voices of the 1960s, the kind of tone that felt dipped in velvet. Born in Brooklyn and raised with a deep love for gospel, he eventually found his way onto Big Top Records, where his interpretations of Burt Bacharach and Hal David's songs set him apart from the pack. In 1964 and 65, he delivered unforgettable renditions of Always Something There to Remind Me, and There's Always Something There to Remind Me, tracks loaded with emotional precision and soulful restraint. Yet despite that unmistakable voice, Lou faced the classic challenge, being the right artist at the wrong label at the wrong time. His versions of those Bacharach was David songs were praised, but other artists' covers charted higher. Add in distribution issues and limited promotional muscle, and Lou Johnson found himself overshadowed in the very moment he should have been rising. But he never stopped singing.
And every step I take recalls how much in love with you.
After Big Top folded, he moved through a handful of labels, working with producers who adored his phrasing and tone. In the 1970s, even as chart visibility slipped, he carved out a living through studio work, commercials, and performances that kept his artistry alive. And for those who followed him, he became a sort of cult figure, a singer, respected deeply within the industry, even if the mass public didn't always know his name. Later in life, Lou stepped away from the mainstream and focused on church work and community performances. His voice mellowed beautifully, gaining a lived-in warmth that made every line feel like a conversation. He passed away in 2019, but his recordings continue to resurface in film soundtracks and curated playlists, drawing new listeners into his gentle sophistication. If Lou brought elegance and introspection, the next artist brings pure emotional thunder, a voice that could shake the soul to attention. Number 3, Ruby Andrews, the soulful firebrand who kept the flame burning on her own terms. Ruby Andrews stepped into the late 60s with a voice full of grit, elegance, and pure Chicago soul. Born Ruby Stackhouse in Mississippi and raised in the Windy City, she brought a striking blend of bluesy toughness and silky finesse to every song she touched. In 1967, when she released Casanova, Your Playing Days Are Over, on Zodiac Records, she delivered a hit that became an instant classic, bold, sassy, and powered by that lush Midwestern production. But Ruby's journey ran much deeper than one breakout track. Behind the curtain, she was working with the legendary Brothers of Soul songwriting team, crafting material that carried emotional depth and dramatic flair. Still, the shifting tides of the early 70s soul landscape, label changes, changing radio tastes, and tightening budgets meant she had to fight harder than most to keep her momentum. Instead of fading, she adapted. Ruby leaned into the gritty, funky Chicago sound and built a loyal following across black radio, particularly in the Midwest and on the Chitlin circuit. And then came her second act. Far beyond the 60s, Ruby Andrews continued recording, releasing albums through the 70s, 80s, and even the 90s. She remained a fixture at soul festivals, blues clubs, and community stages, keeping that unmistakable voice alive for generations of fans. Long after many of her peers stepped back, Ruby kept performing, confident, charismatic, and grateful for every crowd that showed up to hear her. Even today, she's celebrated in Northern Soul circles, where her deeper cuts spin as dance floor favorites. Casanova remains her signature, but her catalog reveals a woman who lived and breathed soul long after the spotlight dimmed. If Ruby brought the bold, confident spark, the next artist delivers something hauntingly beautiful. A storyteller whose voice carried both pain and poetry. Number 2, O.V. Wright, the aching Memphis preacher of soul O.V.
You gonna make me cry.
Wright had a voice that sounded like it carried a lifetime of burdens, blessings, and unspoken prayers. Born in Mississippi, raised on gospel harmonies, and molded by the sanctified fire of church singing, he brought that spiritual weight with him when he stepped into the secular world. His breakout moment came in the mid-60s when he recorded You're Gonna Make Me Cry, and later, the bone-deep classic Ace of Spades.
And we get down on our knees.
Backed by the High Records/Backbeat machine and the unmatched production of Willie Mitchell, Wright created some of the most emotionally raw recordings of the era. But behind the curtain, his story was complicated. Coming out of gospel into R&B meant legal battles, disputes between labels, tug-of-wars over his contract, and pressures that wore him down. Added to that, Wright struggled with addiction, a challenge that shadowed his life and at times threatened to eclipse his genius. Still, whenever he stepped into a studio, something holy happened.
I can't shake it loose.
His voice wasn't just powerful, it was devastating. The kind of soul delivery that made grown men stop in their tracks. In the 70s, as High Records perfected its warm, horn-soaked sound, O.V. Wright became one of its crown jewels. Songs like A Nickel and a Nail showcased a man nearly broken, yet still reaching for hope. Audiences could feel every crack, every sigh, every plea. His music didn't just tell stories, it confessed them.
All I know about, oh baby.
O.V. Wright passed far too soon in 1980, but his influence is immense. Southern soul singers still cite him as a blueprint. Deep soul collectors speak his name with reverence, and every time one of his records spins, it feels like the room gets still, as if everyone knows they're listening to something sacred. And if O.V. Wright carried the heavy, heartbreaking truth of soul, our #1 pick brings the sweet, unmistakable sound of joy. A voice so beloved, it continues to echo through generations. Number 1, Mary Wells, the trailblazing First Lady of Motown who found her own path.
Nothing you can say could tear me away.
Mary Wells wasn't just a star. She was Motown's first queen. In the early 1960s, her voice helped build the very foundation of Berry Gordy's young label. Born in Detroit with dreams of singing her way beyond the factory line, she arrived at Motown as a teenager and quickly became one of its brightest lights. With hits like You Beat Me to the Punch, Two Lovers, and of course the mega classic My Guy. Mary became the first Motown artist to cross into true mainstream superstardom, opening the doors for everyone who came after. But her journey wasn't without turbulence. In the mid-60s, after disputes about royalties and future earnings, she made the bold, risky decision to leave Motown at the height of her fame. It shocked the industry. Some saw it as courage, others called it career suicide. Without Motown's machine behind her, she struggled to find the same chart momentum.
Nothing you could do, 'cause I'm stuck.
Yet Mary kept pushing, recording for 20th Century Fox, Atco, and Jubilee, touring relentlessly, and proving she was more than the hits that first defined her. What's remarkable is how deeply loved she remained. Even as trends shifted, audiences still lit up when she walked on stage. Mary never lost that warm, smiling charisma or the soft, honeyed tone that made her unforgettable. In later years, she continued performing until health struggles slowed her down. And though she passed away in 1992, her legacy only grew stronger.
Everybody doing? It's nothing you can say could tear.
Modern R&B owes a debt to Mary Wells, the woman who paved the way for Motown's golden age and influenced generations of singers with her elegance, heart, and quiet fire. And here's the beauty. Every time My Guy plays at a wedding, a cookout, a family reunion, or just on a dusty old radio, Mary Wells is right there with us. Joyful, timeless, and forever the First Lady. From Motown royalty to Chicago fire, from deep Southern soul to West Coast sunshine, these 12 R&B wonders of the 1960s remind us just how rich and varied the era truly was. Their journeys didn't all follow the same path. but each one left a mark that still glows today. Thanks for joining us on this soul stroll. If you loved this trip through R&B history, make sure to subscribe to keep the groove alive and never miss our next stroll. And for your end screen, don't stop now. Click into our next video, the 12 highest selling R&B artists of the 1970s, and let's keep the rhythm rolling.